All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Sentenced to Greatness podcast with your host, Marcel Zaborek and Isaac Conaway, who decided to ditch us today. But, I mean, what are you going to do? We got New Year's Eve today, so last day of the year. Last day of the year. By the time you guys hear this, it'll be the new year. So, officially, Happy New Year's to everybody. It's like we're in the future over here. It's like we're ahead of everybody else. But anyway, Happy New Year's Eve to you guys. Thank you for coming on. And
Happy New Year's, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, so what's going on with you guys? What do you guys got? How'd your year go? Let's start off with that. How did you guys' year go? Did it go good? Did it go bad? Yeah, Jordan, you go for it. I know you're itching to go right there.
I was saying Dave to go first. Yeah, this is like the biggest year of my life, man. Started out pretty fluffy, full on off season. Had a 2.5 year off season, then did like a almost 6 month long prep into USA's, hoping to place like a top 5 and won the overall. So
not too shabby, right?
Yeah, man, you look great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. So it was huge, and I'm grateful for it, and all kinds of stuff has come out of that. Of course, getting sponsored by Condemned Labs, a great team to be a part of with you guys. So many things to be thankful for this past year, and hopefully 2022 is even better. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. How about you, Dave?
This year was a little bit of ups and downs for me, especially in the beginning of the year. But as we started to wind things down, I hit a good stride with clients, with training, with business ventures. So we're ending 2021 a lot better than it started.
Good. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing for me. It was a weird year for me, like on a personal level and business level. Everything went great. Another great year. It's been growing and year after year after year after year. So I'm happy and thankful for that. On the competitive side, things didn't go as well as I planned, which was probably like the biggest downfall for me this year, where I'm like, I just don't feel accomplished, don't feel satisfied in that term, but everything else went great. Can't complain. We're fairly healthy, family's good, everything's good. So, not a bad way to close off the year.
No.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Dave, with the clients, because I don't know if you guys find that, because both of you guys are coaches. You guys go in these cycles of like where it's all of a sudden things die down for you, and then 2 months later, out of nowhere, you're getting like 10 to 12 requests in a week, and you're like, what's going on? I was like sitting on my thumb a few weeks ago with nothing to do, and now like I don't know where to start.
Yeah, me and Marcel, before you got on, Dave, we were chatting about that, because Christmas is like that time where you don't get as many check-ins as you normally would.
No,
which
really
I tell them to not check in on Christmas anyways, but then you also don't get as many requests until after Christmas. Then people are like, oh man, I need a coach.
Right.
And then you get all of the requests all at once.
I've literally been scrambling now to try to get people's programs together to have them ready to start, in the new year. And I'm like, I don't want to fall behind, because everybody wants them, Saturday or Sunday, so they can get everything prepped and everything ready to go.
Yeah.
So they were sending me all their emails, all their client questionnaires and everything this whole week, and I'm trying to get everyone in line and ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
And as far as, I don't know if you guys have any competitors, but like, up here in New York, obviously, the Metropolitans is April 9th. So, we're 14 weeks out from Monday, or from Saturday, excuse me. So I have a lot of people getting ready for that already.
Good. Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
It's funny, because that's exactly what we were talking about, how like I have like all these like new clients that start coming in, and it's like it gives you anxiety knowing like that you have clients waiting for their program. But then you had some check-ins come in, so you're like, and then it's New Year's Eve, so you kind of want to just hang back and enjoy it a little bit, just relax. Finally, it's like last day of the year, I'm gonna enjoy it, relax. And then but in the back of your head, you're like, man, I got programs to do. So
people are chomping at the bit, ready to go.
Oh yeah, everybody's, hey, well, when do you think we're gonna get it to you? I'm like, unfortunately, guys, I think it's gonna be Monday afternoon. With everybody, but
that's not the first, man. You got to start on the first.
Is it? I was gonna ask you guys what your goals are like for the next year, but I'm like, man, we're all like fitness and bodybuilder people. It's the same thing year after year. You know what I mean?
Seriously.
get better in all aspects of life. That's it. Nothing changes for us. We're
No.
we're just gonna keep chomping away at the bit. That's all we can
See,
do.
I'm a lot older than you guys, so like my competitive days are over. Now for me, it's just coaching. It's trying to diversify some business ideas. Get things out in the field so I can take a little bit of a step back from having to always be in shape and always be pushing in the gym. I just turned 40 this year, so I don't have that much. Yeah, I don't have that many more good years of training and looking this way in me.
Right. Hey, but when I get to 40, I still want to look like you, Dave. So
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Over 20 years of hard work in this industry.
Hey, and that's the funny part, that 20 years in, you're still humble and you're still saying you got ways to improve and you got different things that you can improve on. And I think that's kind of what fitness and bodybuilding is instilled in a lot of us, is just, man, it's just another year where we're trying to get better in all aspects: business, coaching, knowledge.
We're always going to be the hardest on ourselves, and always want to push for more. That's what, no matter how good you look, even like, Jordan, you win an overall or whatever, you still think, oh, this could be better. That could be better. I could be doing this more.
Yeah. I pick myself apart. Yeah. I was like, I may have won this, but do I look like a competitive pro yet? Like, can I step on this pro stage and get top 5? Because that's the next goal. And if I'm not there, then I'm not. Once I'm there, it's going to be the next thing. So it's always more.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. So speaking of new goals for the new year, we all know as coaches that, once you come around to that last week of the year, and then the New Year's, you're getting a lot of questions about, well, what can I do to get in shape? How can I burn fat? What can I do to make that process more streamlined and more effective? And there's just tons of questions that I get about that all the time. What can I do? Because I want to lose fat. I want to get leaner, Marcel. I want to get healthier. So where do I start? Or, sometimes it's like, I've been trying everything and nothing is working. So how do you guys go about, setting up a client on a fat burning plan? How do you guys go about starting it? How do you guys structure it? And what are some of the key things that you make sure that you do, and what kind of information gathering process do you guys use to make that plan tailored to each particular person?
You want to start, Jordan?
Yeah, sure. So, for me, the biggest things I try to find are, one, like their baseline diet of what's going to be their maintenance.
So sorry to cut you off. So with baseline, what do you mean by baseline? Because there are some people that just have no they have no clue what we're talking about.
If I start somebody off like let's say a bigger guy at like 300 plus grams of carbs, and like maybe he's used to taking more protein, so I'm gonna start him with higher protein than like a lifestyle client. Wherever I find where his weight's not gonna change at all with that diet, that's where I know his baseline and his maintenance level's at. Then we can adjust accordingly. I always look at finding that baseline, as well as finding a diet that is easy enough to adhere to. So, like, also if you have a competitive bodybuilder or female competitor, whatever, they're probably more used to a more rigid diet than like a lifestyle client. And they probably aren't going to want the bland stuff that bodybuilders eat over and over all the time. You're probably going to have to give them some more variety. So those are the two things that I look at. And of course, it's usually based on a questionnaire I send them if they're just starting out, what they've been doing, how their results have been, and then just kind of go from there, and based on their response, adjust accordingly. Usually that initial diet, it's not going to stay there for a very long time. Sometimes you get a really good guess, but everybody's different, so you can only get it so close to what you need, and then you're going to have to make adjustments. But then once you find that spot, that sweet spot, you start seeing that linear change, and then eventually it flattens out, and you've got to make more changes with cardio or diet or whatever.
Absolutely.
But finding the baseline and finding something they can adhere to.
So Dave, I want you to answer that as well as so what actually creates fat burn inside the body? what do people have to look for, what they have to create inside the body in order for them to lose fat and get leaner?
Gotcha. Honestly, what Jordan said is pretty much the same approach I take. I try to gather as much information from the client as possible. And like you said, there's a big difference between a competitor and a lifestyle client. A lifestyle client really doesn't have any set date where they need to be a certain body fat or look a certain way. They're just trying to improve their lifestyle. So I'm a little bit more lax with their programs. I try to find out exactly, like he said, what they've been doing, what they're accustomed to. I don't want to overload them. Like I have a lot of women, for instance, that eat 1 to 2, maybe 3 meals a day.
Yep.
Obviously, I'd like to get them up to 5 small meals, but I know that's too much in the beginning, or they'll never be able to finish the food or stick to it.
Right.
So I try to come in as close to what they've been doing as possible, and then make small changes from there. Same thing with my guys. If they're eating X amount of calories and I want to put them in a deficit, obviously I'm not going to drop them too far right away because I don't want to cause a crash in their metabolism. And contradictory, if they're trying to put on size, I'm not going to overload them with food immediately because, again, it's going to bog down the digestive system. It's going to change the way their body, with the way they process those foods. So I try to come in as close to what they've been doing as possible and then make small incremental changes from there. And I pretty much take the same approach to everyone. Like Jordan said, that initial program, you're not really paying me for that initial program. You're paying me for how I change the program over the time. Because the first time getting it off hitting it right on the nail on the head the first time is not always going to be the case. I usually give a best guess of what I think is going to work, and then I just keep checking in every week and adjusting as we move forward.
Okay. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, as far as what it takes to actually burn fat, that's like the most important thing, which most people never realize. It's not only burning fat, which is pretty simple when it comes down to it. It's just, moderate intensity cardio. It's using things that are suitable. Fat is suitable for a fuel source. Anything too intense, obviously, you're going to burn glycogen. So you want to keep things moderate so fat can be a suitable fuel source. And it's getting fat out of your body fat stores. People don't realize that when, your triglycerides are stored, you need hormones like cortisol, growth hormone, adrenaline. Those kind of hormones are going to free fatty acids up from those fat stores, and they're going to start circulating them in the blood. Then once they're circulating, it's the cardio, it's the daily activities that can actually burn them off. That's why, not to plug a condemned product, but arsen is so effective because it helps get fat out of the stores, and then once it's circulating in the blood, you're able to burn it off.
Absolutely. And people do have to realize as well, at some point, you're going to have to be in a caloric deficit as well. When you are trying to burn fat, at some point, there will be a caloric deficit. If you're intaking more than what your body is expanding, you're gonna have a hard time burning fat,
Right.
So at some point you are gonna feel a little bit of hunger, at some point you might feel a little bit low of energy. Those are all things that are okay when you are trying to burn fat. Obviously, that's going to also come into play how lean you already are when you are starting your plan. How will you feel right off the bat? Because sometimes if you're starting let's say somebody is 50 to 60 pounds overweight, they might feel full. They still will drop weight. Weight. Absolutely. But if you are starting off, already pretty lean, but you want to get leaner, that's going to hurt a little bit more. You're going to feel a little bit more hunger. Your energy levels will be lower. So that's okay. Because a lot of times I see people come to me and they're like, I'm super hungry. I'm a little bit tired, and but I need to get like these last bits of fat off. And I usually say, well, yeah, it's probably going to feel that way.
Right. You have to suffer.
You're going to have to suffer quite a bit to get down to those, those super lean stages. Your body's not meant to function at extremely lean stages. So you're going to have to take your body outside the comfort zone where hunger and tiredness and, irritability, sometimes, as a female, your hormones might get thrown off when you get extremely low body fat. So those things are all okay. No, I wouldn't say okay, but those are the things that you're going to feel when you're trying.
Right, they should expect that.
You should expect that. So to the lifestyle clients that are listening to just a regular, person, yes, you are going to feel hunger. And that's maybe sometimes you're going to start off the program and you don't feel any hunger at all. But 4 or 5 weeks in, all of a sudden you're starting to feel hunger and, you're like, well, I'm hungry, so I should eat more. Sometimes that's not the case. You're gonna have to feel a little bit of hunger to get leaner, and that's just the end of it. You're gonna have to fight off cravings, and you're gonna have to stick to your meal plan so you know what's going on inside your body. When you throw in too many variables, it is very hard to make those adjustments that Jordan and Dave talked about. It's all about, trying to keep it as consistent as possible to where you have the least amount of variables that can change an outcome.
I'm really, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say something that I'm really big on, and I know a lot of people feel differently about it, but it's something that I've used on myself when I competed and all my clients is fasted cardio for burning fat. When you wake up first thing in the morning and cortisol's high, your body's in a naturally fasted state, blood sugars are low, and your body is more adapt to use fat as a fuel source if you're doing a moderate intensity cardio. And people hate it. They hate getting up early. Some people say it doesn't matter when you do your cardio. I just find that when you really want to take it to that next level of conditioning, doing fasted cardio forces your body to tap into those body fat stores. And like I said, when cortisol is high and your body's it's circulating fatty acids anyway for energy, it's the perfect time to burn them off. It's the time that you've probably gone the longest in the day without eating, and your body's forced to use anything that it has in its storage for fuel. And that's when it's going to be the most adaptive burning fat. That and post-workout, I find, are the most effective times for burning body fat when you're doing cardio only.
Yeah, in the middle of the day, like a lot of people ask me if they can just do it at whatever time. And yeah, you still burn the calories. So like if you're in a deficit, it still puts you in the deficit you need to be in. But like if you've got food on your stomach, your body's going to operate a little bit differently than fasted or after you already burned through all that food training. So those are the times that make sense. And Dave, what you said, I mean, anytime I've added that for a client, even if it's just like a walk in the morning, like a brisk walk outside, moderate, just the fact that they woke up to start moving that early without food, it always makes a difference. Like my clients are trying harder.
It shows, like, I mean, you could just do the simple, the thought process in your head. If you have circulating blood sugar and you've recently eaten, your body's going to use that for energy first.
Right.
When you're tapped out and blood sugar's low, your body has to tap into whatever kind of stores it can, get its hands on. And that's going to be, primarily body fat. It just, if you, like you said, try to do cardio midday, you're going to put yourself in a deficit. You're going to burn calories, but it's not as efficient at burning just body fat. Right. Optimal. Like Milo Sashev, I don't know if you guys follow him all the time. He's a big influence of mine, but he always likes to say, what is the optimal way to do something? And if you just want to burn body fat exclusively and you want to kind of preserve any kind of muscle glycogen or anything else, it's the fastest state I find is the best way to go.
Yeah, fastest state is the way to go. Yeah, as long as you're not using directly glycogen to power you through that cardio, you're going to be optimizing burning fat. So like they said, fasted state is usually the way to go because you have no food in you whatsoever.
And people worry about burning muscle, and I that's the one thing I try to tell everyone. As long as your cardio's moderate and you're not sprinting or doing like a HIIT style of cardio, you're going to preserve muscle glycogen and you're going to be muscle sparing. A uphill walk or something relatively moderate should be fine.
And listen, if we're talking about a lifestyle client over here, I hear this all the time too. Well, I feel like I'm losing my muscle. Listen, when you were on your regular meal plan before you got with me and you were eating, 2 to 3 meals a day, not really tracking anything, eating wherever the heck you bought anywhere. But now you're worried about eating 6 meals a day or 5 to 6 meals a day with sufficient protein intake and a pretty well balanced diet. And you're just worried about that doing a little bit more cardio than what you're comfortable with is going to diet off your muscle. You are completely wrong. You need to be extremely lean and need to do quite a bit amount of cardio, put your body in some extreme situations to where it's extremely uncomfortable to start breaking down muscle for energy.
Right. I mean, I see a lot. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you need to just get extremely uncomfortable. And as a lifestyle client, you will most likely never reach that stage. Never. Unless you're fasting for 24, 36 hours and you're doing 2 hours of cardio, you're probably not going to hit that stage when you still have some sort of fat storage on your body. So don't worry about losing any muscle. I promise you, you're not losing any muscle. You're just probably not as big as you thought you are. That's just all there's to it.
Yep.
Right.
Even with my competitors, I feel the same way.
Absolutely.
When I put them on a low carb diet, or some of them have to get into a ketogenic state, when you lose that stored muscle glycogen and you have that softer look, you haven't lost muscle. You just lost the fullness to your muscle bellies.
Absolutely.
Once you carb back up again and that muscle pushes against the skin, you're going to look big and hard and lean. But to get to that place where your subcutaneous fat's gone and you're extremely lean, you have to deplete those muscle glycogen stores, so your body's forced to use that body fat. And that's what I think, social media, when everyone, obviously gives social media a bad name, it's hard to post good pics a couple weeks out when you're really flat and you don't look your best. So people want to put those carbs in just so they can take a good picture in the gym or get a good pump. But that's what's going to sacrifice your conditioning on stage.
Absolutely.
You should be flat at the end.
Yeah, you should be. If you're not flat and depleted,
there's a problem.
Yeah, you should look like shit, a couple weeks out when your body's just really going through it. Yeah. And then when you fill up and you hit the stage, that's when you should look your best, not 2 weeks out or a week out.
Yeah, and then I think another issue that we're running into in our industry with the social media, I see a lot of coaches posting and boasting about, their clients eating like 600, 700, 800 grams of carbs, while dieting down, and they're doing zero cardio. I see that stuff all the time. And I get there's anomalies, and I get there's times in a program where maybe you're dieting down when you bring somebody out of that state, let their body breathe for a week or two, and then you cut it back down. I understand there's times like that, but I think that's really skewing the perception to a lot of newer competitors about how you get in show shape. Because let me tell you, that's 99.9% of the time, that is not it. That is not how you get in show shape. You are going to probably battle maybe a zero carb day, here and there. You're going to battle doing cardio. You're going to battle feeling like crap. You're not going to be dieting on bagels and cereal. Let me tell you that.
See, there's a lot of genetic freaks in the sport because
absolutely
bodybuilding is going to attract people that are genetically inclined to it. Because that's why it started in the first place, half the people. But there's also something to be said about the people that maybe aren't as genetically blessed that are willing to go to that place that the genetically blessed people aren't. So, I've had some people, they're like, and even myself, it's, sometimes you look at these other guys in prep and you're like, gosh, they have 5 guys every 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And, it's like, how are they getting in shape? But, there's also, I feel, a different look to some of the guys that don't do that. Like some of those guys just don't come in condition. Like I never had cheat meals in prep, not at all. My refeeds were like same exact meals,
just higher carb amounts.
More of the same carb source that I've been doing for 20 whatever weeks. So like, and that's how I do it with my clients. Unless I got somebody that really I wanted to test that with, I just don't. I don't think it's as safe, and I think that it's more efficient to use things that your body knows and understands. And prep is just not going to be fun. Too many people want it to be this fun thing to do, and it sucks. It's not a fun thing to do at all.
It's fun in a different way, right? Like it's fun in a different. It's fun in a really mentally fucked up way, where you're like, let's see how bad I can make myself hurt and how lean I can get. How miserable can I make myself to look the best on stage? Because let me tell you, if you get up in the morning and you're like, hey, I'm ready to go, I'm in prep, you're probably not doing it right at some point.
No.
It hurts. And this is the same thing I want to tell my lifestyle clients. It's not as extreme, and it gets monotone. It gets, not fun to do some of these things, especially if you're a lifestyle client and you don't really have an end goal and you don't know where it's taking you.
Right.
But at the end of the day, your health should be, important enough to you to where you're willing to sacrifice a little bit to get to where your goals are. Because if you continue on a certain path, it's probably just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then once, health issues start popping up, you get obese, you have a hard time sleeping, your hormones are all over the place. Maybe you're getting to pre-diabetic, high blood pressure, your cholesterol levels are all over the place. That's when you want to start, fixing things and going back to it. It'll get even harder at that point. I'll promise you that. At that point, it's even harder to get your body to where it's comfortable. And
Well, and at that point too, like your gut's all messed up. Like if you're eating in a way that you're eating processed foods all the time, eating just, some people eat 1, 2 meals a day, but they go crazy on that meal and then eat a bunch of snacks and have their Frappuccino from Starbucks and all this processed junk all day. And it's like the things that that's doing within your gut and your digestive health, that stems to everything else, like you talked about with hormones. That's why like our society in general has some major hormone issues because the food that we eat as a society don't go for clean whole foods in the amounts that we need, the right healthy fats that we need, protein, whatever. It's like people just have thrown that out the window anyway. So you're right. Like it stems to all aspects of life if you don't at least attempt to have some sort of structure here. So even for your lifestyle people, like they don't have some big weight loss goal, like they could just feel overall better if they just stick to one of these plans for a little while.
And now, I tell people too, it's like it's harder to get to a comfortable body weight and comfortable body image than it is to stay there. Once you put the work in and you've been dieting for a while and you become comfortable at a different set point in your body's metabolic rate and your body fat store, it's easier to stay there than it was to get there. So you can have maybe a cheat where you can, deviate slightly once you've been doing it consistently for 6 months or 8 months or a year. I tell my clients, you're not going to erase a lifetime of bad habits in a few months.
Absolutely.
It's going to take time. And once that time is put in, you're going to be able to have that cheat. You're going to be able to go on vacation and not blow up. And when you come back, you get right back on the lifestyle because your body's going to be very adapted to digesting and assimilating the foods that you've been taking in. And it's not going to be so thrown off when you put in a variable.
Absolutely. And I think I'm glad that you mentioned that because there's a big disconnect in today's society on, what normal food is. Because I get this all the time. Like I'll go places and people will be like, so when are you going to be able to eat normal food? Like, have you guys ever gotten that? And I'm like,
all the time.
Well, what's normal food to you guys? Well, like just eat whatever. And, I'm like, well, listen, guys, I eat normal food every day. I eat chicken, I eat steak, I eat potatoes, I eat rice. I'll eat some bread here and there, like sourdough bread or easy cube bread. I eat whole eggs. I eat vegetables. You name it, I probably eat it. Just not in the forms that you guys are thinking. Right. So and then I reverse the table on them. I'm like, so when are you going to eat normal food? Because right now you're not eating normal food. I'm the one eating normal food. I'm eating food the way it was supposed to be eaten.
Right. I feel guilty if I use like instant oats or something like that. You know what I mean? Like instead of just like regular steel cut. And that's my cheat. Like in my quote unquote off season, I'll have, maybe some instant oats or I'll have some Greek yogurt with fruit in it. That's not just, plain, regular Greek yogurt, things like that. Like, and that's how I kind of find like a little bit of a happy balance in what I do.
Absolutely. And listen, what the point that I'm trying to get across is eating out multiple times a day is not eating normal food. That's not normal life. That should be a meal that you have, once in a while, even once or twice a week. If you're at your goal and you're okay with hey, if you can get away with it 1, 2, 3 times a week, that's totally fine. I'm a human being, right? Like so, as well as you guys are. You guys will go enjoy yourself once in a while, right? But you got to make sure that your goals and where you're heading aligns with the effort that you're putting in, right? Like you can't expect to be eating, cheat meals 3 times a week and still get extremely lean. You know what I mean? Like, but if you're okay with what you are and you're just maintaining and the rest of your program or the rest of your regimen that you use keeps you in that hemostasis, that's totally fine. As long as your health markers are in check, you're sleeping well, your hormones are through the roof, so everything is where it needs to be, health markers are great, sure, that's fine. Keep it there. You know what I mean? If you're sleeping great, feeling great, energy is where it needs to be, you have energy to work out, you have energy to hang out with your kids and you feel good, awesome. You found your thing. Like you found your balance and all power to that. But you got to realize that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's also, I think you mentioned expectations, or maybe you didn't. Maybe this is just what I was thinking of what you were saying. So people have the expectations of like looking on social media. Again, they see people like The Rock or whoever eating these massive, insane cheat meals and thinking that that's how it is. And people ask me all the time, oh, do you have some crazy cheat day every week? And it's like, it's just this mindset that people have to set up their expectations a little differently too.
Yeah.
So that they're having a more consistent, like they can't go in with the expectation, like you said, maybe they're not the person that can have 3 cheat meals a week and get away with it. But there is somebody out there that can. You can't be mad about it. It's just the way it is. It was the cards you were dealt, so you just got to go with it. That's your genetics, and you have to set up the expectations of like you have to put in the effort. You can have balance and find your balance, but your balance may not be what whoever else on social media is. The expectations just have to be set up a little differently.
And they have to be honest with their effort. You know, how much effort are they really putting in? Are they getting up every day and doing their cardio? Are they training intensely, 4 or 5 to 6 times a week? Because if you're doing all those things, you might be able to get away with a little bit more, a cheat here and there, or a little bit of a deviation from the nutrition program. But if you're not putting in the effort, you can't expect to be able to deviate from the nutrition program and slack off in the training and the cardio. You have to have everything on point if you're going to have any kind of deviation whatsoever.
Yeah, if you're like 90% on diet, training, cardio on each, that's better than being like 100% on 2 of them and 40% on 1 of them.
Exactly.
So like, it's always best to be mostly consistent on everything than being really consistent on a couple of things and horrible at the other thing, because they all work together.
Yeah, it's a synergistic effort. So to give people an outline and wrap that the whole thing up. To burn fat, okay, you want to start off by finding your baseline where your body's at currently, where your metabolism's at currently. So kind of like the caloric intake that you need for your body to stay where it's at. Subtract some calories from that. Let's say about 500 a day, okay, give or take. Subtract about 500 a day from that. And then make sure you have some kind of activity output that creates demand to burn calories and for energy. So weightlifting is a great one. It's probably the best one that I tell people. And then if you can, weightlifting and some kind of cardiovascular activity in a fasted state. So either post-workout or fasted. Okay.
Correct.
Right.
Take that, follow that to the T for a week or two and adjust accordingly. Take pictures, take your weight, and take those things into consideration. Am I looking leaner? Did my weight move? And if so, how much? And adjust accordingly. Okay, so if you lost 2 to 3 pounds in a week, great. You probably don't even need any changes. Do it again this week. You know what I mean? But if you're lost half a pound and you feel like you worked pretty hard, well, make some adjustments, pull back a little bit of food or add a little bit of cardio and make these adjustments small and gradual. Don't change everything at once, because the least amount of variables, the better. Change a little bit at a time and kind of adjust accordingly. And then make sure you track everything. So that's how you create some kind of plan for yourself if you're not working with anybody to make sure that you are burning fat and you are, getting leaner and getting healthier. So
one thing that you said is important is building muscle. Adding lean tissue is always going to create a higher caloric demand to just maintain that muscle tissue. So your body's natural metabolism is going to increase as you start to build muscle. I have some clients, competitors and lifestyle clients, whose weight hasn't really changed that much, but now that they're eating 5 to 6 meals a day, their protein's increasing, they're training every day, they're actually building muscle, they're storing more glycogen in the muscle and less is being stored in body fat. So they're kind of like recomping without having the scale move so dramatically, but they're getting a much more dramatic look in their physique.
Do you guys know that what the only thing that actually dictates how high and low your metabolism is?
You know what you can say? Thyroid?
The amount of muscle mass you have.
Oh, okay.
Because the more muscle mass you have, lean tissue burns more calories than, post-fatty tissue. So when people say, oh, I got older, my metabolism slowed down, it's probably a myth. It's probably you're not as active as you used to be. So the amount of lean body mass and lean tissue and active tissue that you have on your body went down, therefore making your metabolism slower.
Yeah.
it's a far stretch, but I really like to correlate those two things. I think that's
No, I
the
agree.
only thing that actually dictates your metabolism is the amount of lean tissue you have, and if
Yeah, I
you're
mean, and you
utilizing
can
that
see it
tissue.
as a competitor too. Like, I'm sure you guys had times where you did preps and you didn't have nearly as much muscle, and you're like, oh my gosh, all these zero carb days, and then you gain some muscle and do another prep, and you're like, whoa, I could eat a lot more this prep than I did last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So here's a few things that I got questioned on as far as fat burning, because I think we kind of covered how to set yourself up to burn fat for energy. I think we did a good job explaining that. But here's a few questions that I got directly about burning fat that I think are going to be great to answer. One of them was, why is water intake so important when you are on a regimen to burn fat? Who wants to take it off?
I mean, I'll start with that one. I guess, I'm a big believer in hydration, period, just for your digestive health whatsoever. And keeping blood circulating, keeping blood volume up, and because obviously, and this is something that many people don't know, is the byproduct of fat metabolism is carbon dioxide and water. As you
breathe
sweat,
it
as you cry, right, as you exhale, those are all
Mhm.
metabolites of fat, burning.
Mhm.
So staying hydrated obviously is going to replenish any of that water that you lose from burning body fat, and just help, again, overall keeping hydrated muscles, keeping a hydrated system, and facilitating further fat burning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without water, that's what our body's made up of. I mean, we can't train efficiently. You can't contract a muscle efficiently. You can't do cardio without cramping up. Well, I mean, you're just not going to function anyways. I mean, Dave's response was definitely more scientific than that, but I mean, it comes down to like your body just does not function if you're dehydrated. It's not going to function.
And one other thing too, I mean, which it's a simple thing, but anytime you're having cravings or you're hungry and you drink water, the first sign of dehydration is hunger pains.
Yeah.
So, putting in water, keeping your stomach full is going to help you not cheat on your diet. It's going to help you stay hydrated, like, we all talked about, and maybe make that dieting process not so miserable.
Yeah. And another thing that, people have to remember, if you really break it down, there's 3 different ways fat actually leaves your body, because I'm sure a lot of you guys never thought about, how does fat actually leave your body? Like, where does it disappear to?
Yeah.
So there's 3 different pathways that it does do that to, and all 3 of them involve water at some point. But you sweat it out, you breathe it out. Yeah, you actually breathe out fat, and then urination. So all 3 of those will involve water. So not having a high water intake could hinder the amount of, the rate at which you can expel fat. So staying hydrated, will flush your body, and it will help with all 3 of those processes. The body is a wonderful machine. So how that happens is there's a very sophisticated and advanced metabolic system that will do that, and free up that body, free up the fat tissue to be either exhaled or urinated out or sweat out. So keeping water high, to where you're comfortable and you're fully hydrated, will help in that.
Will also help like those people that are confused with water weight and actually gaining fat. Like, oh my gosh, I'm 2-3 pounds up, or I didn't lose any weight. What's going on? Your water balance and your sodium balance affects that majorly. So if you go from drinking 1.5 gallons of water to a half a gallon, probably going to hold more water. Your water balance is off. So you're going to look watery. You're going to look like you're storing more fat, and you're going to be heavier on the scale. So that's another thing too, is just from a perspective of like where you're actually at in your fat burning process. You've got to keep water consistent as well, and not just all over the place. You want to keep it relatively consistent.
Okay, very good. Another question I got was, are fat burners necessary to lose weight?
No, but they help.
I agree. I was gonna say they're not necessary, but like we talked about, back in the day, ephedrine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, any kind of these like neurotransmitters or other chemicals can help free up body fat from its stores and get it into the bloodstream. I find like my most stubborn clients, I feel like that's their biggest hurdle, is actually mobilizing fat as opposed to burning it off. They'll do cardio every day, but if they're not getting the body fat out of those stores and getting it into the bloodstream for circulation and oxidation, they're not going to have a very successful time doing it.
Absolutely.
And then also, like, arson has a lot of fat burners have appetite control. So for people that may not be as like hardcore, have as hardcore of a mindset, like a competitor knows going into a prep, they're about to have to deal with hunger for the next 3 months. But your everyday person doesn't want to have to deal with that. So appetite suppressants that are in fat burners like arson also can help in that, where people just have a hard time adhering to a plan where they have to be hungry all the time.
Absolutely.
Another thing too, like we really didn't talk about, which it just hit me now, is insulin sensitivity.
Right.
You know, if your body's secreting a tremendous amount of insulin to metabolize a certain amount of carbohydrates, you have a much greater chance of storing some of those carbs in your body fat stores. So, maintaining healthy blood sugar levels, keeping them as low as possible, insulin sensitivity, it's gonna minimize body fat storage and maybe not have you have to work so hard to get rid of the body fat you do have.
Which also going crazy with the cheat meals pretty often is how you become insulin resistant as well. So keeping those at a minimum also helps with that.
Yeah. As far as fat burners, people have to understand that it's a tool, right? It's a tool that, if applied properly at the proper time, will help you. That's what tools are for, to help, but not to rely on. So, with that being said, as long as all your other pieces of the puzzle are in place, so you're staying active, you're doing your cardio, you're in a caloric deficit, you're not having crazy amounts of cheat meals, you're staying consistent to your plan, and you want to use another tool to help you facilitate all that, go for it. No problem. But you got to understand that arson is a great fat burner, but let's face it, it's if you're eating like shit, it's not going to help you.
It's not going to do anything.
You know what I mean? It's not going to help you. So use it as a tool, but not one of the pillars that's a foundation for.
Well, that's every kind of supplement, right? So people don't understand what a supplement is. It's supplementing everything else. You've got to have everything else in line for those supplements to really do their job of what they're supposed to do. You can't rely on
that. I like to have my clients, I like to have them, I don't like to throw everything at them at once, like you guys said before, maybe start off with a moderate amount of cardio, a low carb diet before we get into a carb cycling, before we get into no carbs, before we add in fat burners, and try to get the most results with the minimal changes. And then when those minimal changes start working, just to keep increasing slightly. And that way you keep generating results without, having them burn out so fast in the first month or so.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's something I've had to deal with some of my prep clients, especially if I don't have them in the off season prior. Like if they start out and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing an hour of cardio right now," I'm like, "Oh my gosh, where do I go from here?"
Exactly.
You always, because you want to slowly use those, like you said, use those different variables, add one thing in at a time to increase intensity and increase the deficit. So yeah, it's very important to be able to pull and add things little bits at a time as you progress.
Yeah, going from a deficit to even a bigger and bigger and bigger deficit is not fun. so you gotta set yourself up properly for prep. Like if you're in a giant deficit and you're doing a lot of cardio before prep, you're gonna have a hard time. Well, you could get there. I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying it hasn't been done. You sure can. It's just it's hard.
Right.
Going from a deficit to a bigger deficit is hard. And then here's another good one was, so I've been dieting for about 4 months now, and I've hit a plateau. It seems like nothing is changing. My weight is stagnant. What do I do?
Well,
I'll let you go for take.
I was just going to say there's not a whole lot of information to go off of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes. So generally speaking, okay, I am assuming that you are following your plan 100%. And you are adhering to it for 3 to 4 weeks at least. Okay. I know this weight is stagnant. Okay. Weight is not everything. Okay. Right. So depends how lean you are at the moment, But generally speaking, weight is not everything. And especially as a female, weight sometimes can really stay stagnant for long periods of time while your body is actually changing. So make sure you are taking pictures and taking look at physically. Maybe not every week you won't see any crazy change, but between a 2 to 4 week span, if you are seeing changes and some ones that are easily noticeable to an untrained eye, then I think you're still fine. Okay.
Like
but you
I
got
have clients, I'm happy if I see a client that wants to get leaner and their pictures get better and better, and maybe we change a pound in a matter of several weeks.
Yeah.
But like every week their pictures get better and their training performance on my questionnaire every week is like, oh, I increased on this, everything's going up every week.
Yeah.
Then you know you're going in the right direction. You can't base it just off the scale. It's just one tool of many tools.
And then another thing is, if you did hit a plateau, you know, I always try to say, you know, it's hard to say without knowing all the ins and outs, obviously, of what this person has been doing. But if you hit a plateau, you know, there's two things that usually you can do to help that. One of them is push harder. Okay, that's usually not everybody's favorite answer. So take a look at your plan and see if there's any more room for, you know, either pulling a little bit of carbohydrates or just pulling a little bit of calories and adding a little bit more cardio, right? That's the first thing that you can usually do. But you got to make sure that you're not already like redlining your body for weeks at a time. And if you're just a lifestyle client, usually not the way to go. Right. Second way to go is actually add a little bit more food, add a little bit more calories, and pull back on the cardio. Okay. That is usually the opposite of what everybody thinks we're going to tell them to do. But
I find that works the best.
Exactly.
Now,
and that's what
in that time frame too, ensure that sleep is there. So that's one of the things we haven't touched on at all. So anytime you need to back the body off from fatigue, try to mitigate fatigue, yes, you can increase food, try to give the body a little bit of a break and stop beating it to death. But then you've got to make sure sleep is there. Because if you're not recovering, then you're still fatigued even though you had that extra food.
Yeah. So that's on my weekly questionnaire is sleep. You know, I ask people what their weight is, how close they follow the program, how hungry they are, and how they're sleeping. Because if they tell me, oh, I'm only getting 2-3 hours a night, or they had a newborn baby, they're not sleeping, I'm like, that's probably the reason why you're not losing weight. You know, your stress hormones are high, cortisol's high, you know, your recovery is very low, and your body's holding on to any kind of nutrients or storage you can.
Yeah. So to push through a plateau, those are usually the two things that you can do. Okay. I like to go with the second one, but people also have to realize that as a lifestyle client, there's a lot of time there's more room to push than you think there is. You're just not mentally. How do I say this without sounding like a complete?
They're in their
Everyone's definition of going hard is different.
Absolutely. There you go. Okay. So if I take a look at your program, at what you're eating, what your body weight is, and you know, and relative to how fit you are, I can very easily make that call of like, okay, how hard are you actually pushing? Because maybe there's some more room to give it a push. And sometimes your body will take a good week of like, okay, we're going to give it a big push. And a lot of times it'll move, and then you could move back from that push, back off a little bit, and then you'll continue to make changes. Sometimes you need to just push it over a hump, right? But if you but if you try pushing it over a hump and that's not working and you're actually doing everything that you're supposed to, and we're not talking like you go 6 days dieting and take 1 day off. Right. That's not doing what you're supposed to. Then pull back, take the cardio out, add a little bit of food, relax. Okay. Use that food to train the way you're supposed to. You're going to feel a little bit better. You're probably going to be able to sleep better. And your body will be less stressed out, producing less cortisol. And guess what? You might check yourself in that week and you're like, what the hell? I dropped a pound. Right. What just happened here? Or you're like, what? I didn't lose any weight. But guess what? You backed off all of that. You backed off all that cardio. You backed off all that, you added food instead of backing off of it. You added food, but you backed off all the cardio that you're doing, and all your other markers improved. So you're feeling stronger. You're sleeping better. That's progress in itself, because now you're kind of restarting your body to be more efficient and be less stressed out. So keep that going for 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Do it for a whole month. If you're not going backwards, but your program got easier, that is progress. That's what people have to understand. That is progress in some way, shape, or form. Because then after your body reaches hemostasis in that program for a month, then guess what? All you do is just pull back slightly again, add a little bit of cardio, or pull back a little bit on the food, and you will most likely get through that plateau, and your body will start, resorting fat as fuel again. And that's just the name of the game. It's kind of like a cycle, you go back and forth with these things. It's hard to answer that in just one as an absolute, because you can't really speak in absolutes in bodybuilding and in fitness. It all depends. There's just so many variables that's hard to control when you're not coaching that person.
Yeah, you guys train clients too a lot as well, or?
Yeah. I don't train them as much as I used to anymore, but train quite a bit of clients. Yeah.
But you've seen in the gym plenty of times, like, I used to come in the morning to train someone, let's say, and I'd see some of my competitors getting ready to do their cardio. And, they got their cups of coffee and they're talking to each other. And it's 20 minutes before any of them got to any kind of speed or sweat. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I did my hour cardio. And I'm like, but did you really?
I saw you on the treadmill
actually working for 35, 40 minutes. Or you stop and take your pee break or do whatever. I've seen it all. Or even training. I tell people when I'm training them or I give them a training program, I'm like, there's difference between squatting and really squatting and doing drop sets and supersets and flexing in between sets and doing those little intensifiers that could take you past those plateaus, whether it's building muscle or burning fat.
Yeah. Just like with everything, there's a difference between following a protocol and really following a protocol. That's with everything. That's with everything that we do. There's a difference between dieting and actually dieting. You know what I mean? So we could use that for everything. As long as you're really doing everything, there's room to improve. And it's funny because sometimes you'll get a check-in and then, I on my check-in form, I give my clients kind of like a scale, like grade yourself on a 1 to 10. How did you do this week? Okay. And then after that, it goes into an explanation why, right? So what did you do? And a lot of the time it's like, I was an 8, I feel like I didn't do my cardio at the right intensity, or, I had a meal off the plan, and then I hit them back with, cool, give me a 10 next week, no changes. And they're like, oh, well, I feel like I didn't make any changes this week. What the change to your program is to actually follow it this week fully. You got to understand that there's room for that. The program doesn't have to be changed a lot. Sometimes it's changing the way you follow the program and really kick it in gear is going to make the world of a difference.
Well, that's something else too that I've talked to a lot of people about. Everybody wants to be entertained, and I think it's also like, it's not about fat burning, but with training programs, people want to be entertained. They always want it to be changing because they look at social media and there's all these guys doing these different workouts every day. And then, they want their diet. They think their diet, I've always got to have a change every week. What are we doing? I've eaten almost the same amount of food since August, but I'm still progressing. It's like, you don't always have to make a change. If the body's going the direction you need it to, you don't always need to change. The change that needs to happen is consistency, because the consistency is where the plan will work. And once you're consistent, then the variables you guys need to change. Like, how hard it is to sit there and we all have those clients that feel like they need a change in their program, even though we didn't follow the program. So it's like, I'm blindly changing this because
you don't know what's working and what's not.
No response,
Yeah. If somebody fucked off 90% of the time, I'll just say, high five, do it again. Talk to you next week. What are you going to do? Like Jordan's saying, I can't guess. What we do, people don't realize what we do when you really break it down is very, very, very simple. Okay. We are evidence-based coaches.
Yep.
If somebody fucks with our evidence, I'm not fighting no battles here.
There's nothing you can do.
Nothing you can do. Well, you mess with my data, I can't adjust it. That's just what people have to understand. Well, I'm kind of tired of this diet plan. I've been following it for 2 weeks. Okay, well then give me a solid week and I'll change it for you.
Right. If you need to change it.
If I need to change it, and I understand sometimes lifestyle clues, it can get boring. So sometimes I'll play the mind entertainment game with somebody. If it's been, 3-4 weeks and we still don't need any changes, I say, hey, you sick of anything on this program? Kind of. Yeah. I kind of don't want to eat the ground turkey or the potatoes anymore. It's just I'm yakking up that meal. Cool, no problem. I'll make a few substitutions for you. You know what I mean? If I know somebody has been really digging hard, and I get it, you're a lifestyle client. I understand you're not wired like a bodybuilder would be, where like, yeah, can we do more cream of rice and chicken, please? Like, you know what I mean? You're just not wired like us, and I get it. So somebody's doing what they're supposed to. I'll play that game with somebody, But if they don't mention it, it's on their questionnaire. I actually have it on their questionnaire. It says answer this once per month only, and it says what are your favorite meals that you had this month, and what are your least favorite meals that you had this month. And I always say, you do not fill this out every week. Don't you dare fill that out every week. It's not happening. But fill it out once per month, and I'll take a look at that, and I'll take that into consideration. You know what I mean? Right. That's what we do as coaches. We consider things, and we want to try to make it as enjoyable as possible for somebody. But sometimes if you're not following it, you're giving me 50%. Why should I give you my 100?
Yeah.
Because you're paying me? I don't really like that. I don't really like that.
Well,
at the end of the day, I don't think we care that much about their money. You know what I mean? We want the results.
The problem is, I see a lot is like, it's almost like if the coach isn't going to want the results more than you do. We both want the results for the client, but you have to want your results just as bad as the coach does. I can't want it for you. It doesn't work that way. You have to want it for yourself. Otherwise,
I used to fight with clients like that all the time. When I first started, I took their programs more seriously than they did. And I would get into arguments with them. And then I realized, like, why am I arguing with someone that doesn't want it for themselves as bad as I do? So I kind of stopped and took like a little bit of a back seat.
Yeah. Sorry, something just fell on this.
Fell in your room out of nowhere.
Yeah, I was like, this is weird. There's nobody in here, but anyway. But yeah, you can't want it more. Do you guys have those clients sometimes where you're kind of stuck in this limbo where they're not making progress, but they're not really following their program, and you're like, you see their check-in and you just don't even want to look at it. You're like, looking at this gives me anxiety. Like
all the time. It's
almost like I don't want your money anymore. I just want you to freaking change your habits and get after it already and start being real with yourself. Don't start being real with me, because obviously that's not important to you. Start being real with yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Start being real with yourself. 10 out of 10. And that they give yourself a 10 score, and that they didn't do a 10 out of 10. You just know it. Know it. You've tried everything back and forth with that client. And then you see them on Facebook or on Instagram, and they're out with their buddies, and that they're not just bringing in their prepped meals with their buddy. You know that.
Right.
That's the thing, though. That's never going to help.
I'm a big social media stalker of my clients. I check all their shit. If I see something on a plate or they're at a party, I'll text them right away. Like, fuck you guys doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Better be on the check-in template next time, because I bet you had this off-plan meal.
Trust me, I've seen that so many times. Like, it's like you get their check-in, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I want to know if this person mentioned, what I saw on social media.
Yeah.
And they did, and I'm like, come on, why you got to do me like that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be the guy calling them out, but I also feel like, why? We're on the same team here. If somebody just tells me, hey, bro, I fucked up this week, I really have no hard feelings. I say, cool.
I save all those emails.
Yeah.
I've had clients, like that didn't place very well at shows, and they're like, oh, like, I don't know why I didn't drop body fat. And I'll take them one by one, and we'll go back through their check-in questionnaires. And I'm going to say, do you see when you said here that you only got 4 days of fasted cardio in, and you missed 2 meals, and you only went to the gym 3 days this week? And I said, these are the reasons. And I keep track of everybody's weight every week. And I'm like, do you see here when you fell off and you went up 4 pounds? I said, these are all the things that you did wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why you didn't look the way you should have.
Here's the thing. The good competitor will think about that on stage. They'll think about that one thing they mess up on. That's how I am. Gosh, it could be some crazy life thing happened and I didn't have an option, but I was like, gosh, emergency, I got to leave and miss cardio. I'll think about that on stage.
Oh yeah.
I won't be able to get over it in my head. It's just like some people are that way and some people aren't. But people that take responsibility for their own results, those are the people that are going to be more successful. And not say, well, what happened? Why didn't we get the result we wanted? It's because you didn't put the work in. You weren't as consistent as you could.
It's crazy because I got like another 4 to 5 questions that are good. But do you guys have any good questions? I don't want to mess with these because I want to answer some of the questions that you guys had.
I don't know that mine were really related to fat burning.
That's okay. Just hit us with something. You know what I mean? So somebody asked a question. If we can answer it and help them out, let's go for it. You know.
Okay. Let's see. All right. The first one I see. This will probably be fun for all of us. What's your scariest moment you've had in training? So, like, I'm assuming close calls or injuries or something like that.
Oof.
What do you guys have?
I had a few. I mean, if you guys don't know already, I've had a bunch of surgeries. Tore both my quads, tore both my triceps. So I'm very very cautious with the way I train now. But you know, I've had some times, you know, squatting where you hear like a pop or something like that, and you know, my knee swells up like a softball. Before I had my injuries, I'd had bad knees, bad tendonitis, and I used to get bad inflammation in my knees where like I thought like I was going down onto the squat bar.
Yeah, that sounds like that too.
I have a good one when training a client. I dropped a 45-pound plate on my female client's foot, like right on her toe before. Yeah, that did some damage. That was a scary one for me because it's like, fuck, I feel terrible, and I'm like, oh shit, is she gonna like try suing me? What is she gonna do? You know, I feel terrible, but she was super cool about it. She came to train a few days later. She was super cool. She couldn't walk for like 3 weeks normally, like she was in pain. I felt so bad, but it's like, what are you gonna do? Like I was going to like hand a plate, and it just fucking hit her right in the toe, man. It was so that was a pretty scary one for me because that was the first time where like I actually hurt somebody and I felt like I was responsible for it and I felt terrible. So that was pretty scary. But as far as like myself, actually I can remember a pretty scary one. This was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I did like a little warm up show. I was 5 weeks out from Junior USA's, I believe, and I did like a warm up show here locally just for fun, for shits and giggles. And I was feeling pretty sick leading up to it. Like I was, you know, I know what a prep struggle is. Like I felt it before, and I know what that is, right? So, you know. It felt different. I felt off. Something was not right inside my body. I did not like it. But you know what? I was just clenching down my teeth and I was like, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. So I went and I did that show. And then the day after, I believe we went to train a pull session or a back session. And, you know, I went to do a bent over row and I was already feeling like complete crap that morning. I mean, super sick. I felt like passing out, you know, and then I just freaking lay down on the ground and I was like, I felt the ground go from underneath me. And I ended up going to, you know, I went home. I couldn't even like hold down water. I drank some water. Isaac gave me some water and stuff, and I just couldn't really hold it down. I felt I got really nauseous. I went home a couple hours later. I actually went to the doctor. I had a kidney infection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my blood pressure was like extremely high, and that was the one I actually had to pull out from that prep. I didn't get to finish that prep.
That's really scary.
Yeah, I had to pull out from that. That was the end of my season right there. So that was a pretty scary one. That was the first time where I was like, shit, like what am I doing? Is this should I keep doing this? You know what I mean? That was the first time where I was like, okay, you know. So that was probably the scariest one for me.
Jeez. Yeah, like you, Dave, I've had the pops in different muscles. Like I had my right quad, something popped on a hack squat. It was swollen for a week, but maybe like micro tear or scar tissue or something, just something popped. And then I've had hamstring pops, and then I'm out, can't do hamstrings for several weeks. But my left hamstring was so bad for like 1 year of my training where like I think
Never healed.
I think it was glute ham raises, which I don't do anymore. And I got too excited and it felt super easy to just pop. I felt it and heard it. It's just, you always wonder if you tear something. But there was the one time I remember that was the scariest that ended up, I was totally fine. Back like before I really knew not to go for 1 rep maxes on a 5-inch. Gosh, it was years and years ago. It was the first time I tried 350 and the bar was bent and I was doing a false grip. So I had thumbs under the bar and I get it. I mean, it was easy. I get it all the way up to here. And then my right hand slips off the bar. And it fell.
Dude, I had the same thing happen with 315.
Gosh. That's not
the same
fun.
thing. I didn't get hurt though. It was
no,
weird.
I didn't either. I finished the workout.
Me too. Knocking 315 out. I get to the top of my last one to lock out, and the bar just rolled right out of my hands.
Yeah.
It came crashing down on my chest.
I thought for sure when it first happened, I was like, crap. My adrenaline was probably high, but I probably broke a rib or something.
That's what I thought.
And I just stand up. I'm like, I'm good. I guess I'm okay. And just finish the workout.
Moral of the story: thumb over the bar when lifting heavy.
Always.
Even though it's so much more comfortable to hold it.
Feels so good,
it feels so good to do it, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep that thumb over just in case this time around.
We call those suicide grips.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What else you guys got?
I can't look at my questions. I don't know if I have any because I'll go.
Oh yeah, you'll leave us.
Yeah.
Jordan, you got anything else?
Let's see. In your opinion, best exercise to grow legs? So it depends on what part of the legs.
Yeah. Well, let me answer that for them as simply as I possibly can without asking 1,000,001 questions. Whatever feels the best for you, the way you feel the most activation without feeling tons of pain. That's the best. It all depends on your biomechanics. All depends if you have any injuries. It all depends where you feel it the most. Some people connect better on certain exercises, and some people don't connect on those exercises at all. So it all depends where you can feel it the most, where your mind to muscle connection feels the best, and you feel the most activation without feeling pain.
And get the most range of motion too. Like if you're trying to train quads, there's some people that say you don't need knee flexion to get big quads, but I mean, I think for the majority of the population, you need a lot of knee flexion to get the most out of your quads. So like, I'm partial to a hack squat. If I'm trying to grow my quads, that's what I've built my legs on, was progressing a hack squat, which can be hard on some people's knees.
Most definitely. That's why it's hard without all the other variables, knowing the other variables.
Right. Yeah. But if I could pick one, that would be my go-to for quads at least.
Yeah. I would use a humbler. If I had to pick one machine, I would go with the humbler.
A humbler? Is that a leg machine?
Yeah, it's like a pendulum squat.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. We have one.
We don't have one around here.
We have one. We have one at our gym. And yeah, it gets a little bit of everything and it really roasts you. It does. And you don't need a lot of weight for it to really feel heavy, which I love. It's like, if you're doing a hack squat or a leg press, you're like, well, it's like a cardio workout, just putting the weights up.
Oh, gosh,
you know what I mean? Oh, but with this, you put like 2 to 3 plates on, and I'm not talking per side. I'm talking total, and it's already feeling super heavy. You put 4 on it, and you're 4 to 5. You're gonna get buried at some point. So, I like the humbler.
What about you, Dave?
For me, like I said, I don't really train legs crazy anymore. Obviously, with both my quads being torn and having surgery, or whatever. But one of the things that I used to get the most activation on, especially quads in particular, was like the 90-degree leg press, where you're sitting kind of, up like you would in a chair and just pushing straight out.
Straight out.
I would get, driving through my heels and like blocking my quads at the top. I'd get a really, really wicked pump and a lot of separation, from the hip down to the knee.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Anything else you got?
I really didn't get that many questions.
Well, as long as we answered some of them,
I put it up this morning, so not many people saw it.
Yeah. Well, I got a few more, but we've been on long enough. But I feel like we should make it like a monthly thing where we just throw up a Q&A and we actually answer on a podcast. I think people would.
We give it like a whole day on the Instagram. So
that's it. Once a month, where instead of having answering on Instagram, we'll answer on a podcast so people can go back and look at all of it. You know what I mean?
That sounds good.
So we should make that a monthly thing. Anywho, I kept you guys on long enough. I know it's New Year's Eve, so I think we covered a good majority of things for people to kind of get set up on fat burning or losing weight or whatever you want to call it, getting in shape. Maybe what I'll do is I'll make some cliff notes for people to kind of type it out in a like a PDF attachment so people can go back to it and take a look at it. It's kind of like a small little guide. So maybe I'll do that. I'll kind of type it out next week and I'll post it whenever I post up the podcast as well. That way you guys can go back, take a look at it, and you really benefit from this podcast. And maybe we'll try to do a little bit more like educational stuff like this where we help people out. And I think the Q&As are going to be huge for that. So maybe we'll make it a monthly thing.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Great, man.
Yeah, awesome. All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming on. Jordan, Dave, go and plug your Instagram handles or your emails or your websites, your Bumbles, Tinders, whatever you want to do.
You go ahead, Dave.
My Instagram is Mr_Center_stage. I do all types of contest prep, lifestyle coaching, very limited one-on-one training now. Also answering any nutritional or supplement questions anybody has. You can DM me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Sweet.
Yeah, so my handle for Instagram is IFBB_Jordan Hutchinson. And my website is hutchinson-fitness.com. My email, you can email me too. It's on my Instagram and on my website. All my rates are up there for coaching. I'm taking on a lot more right now. I've got more room as my schedule is being pretty opened up. I'm kind of transitioning to full-time coaching now. So, so email me, DM me, follow me on Instagram. Happy to help whoever. So.
Yep. And as always, make sure you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe on the podcast. Other than that, you guys have a great New Year's Eve. And
you too, brother.
Yeah, you guys enjoy it. Yeah, make sure you make that last day of the year count, right?
Absolutely.
Shoulders today.
Yeah, I already got mine out of the way, so I'm happy I did that. But I tweaked something to my neck, so I'm like sitting here. I can't really turn too fast right now. So,
Jeez.
But but it was a good training session. It was worth it. All right, I'll talk to you guys. Have a great night. Talk to you.
All right, see you guys.
Yep, bye.
See you guys later.